Welcome back to the Sunday premier political show that tops all the agendas of the country and discusses them to the core. Inside Politics, I am your guest host, Mark Bichachi. In this hour, we are going to discuss the finance bill. Yes, taxes. Are we succeeding? Are we going the right direction? And of course, we will be taking your calls. The numbers are scrolling at the bottom of the screen and being displayed on your televisions right now. Please call us in the second half of this hour as we dive into the issues of the Finance Bill 2024-2025. Now, my friend Shimeha on Zoom is a governance expert. And let me just ask you this, Shimeha. This country has faced a new tax regime over the last 1 year. We are about to experience another one. What is your take? Are we doing better? Does something need to change? Is the government on the right direction? Shimera, you might need to switch on your microphone.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Mike Bichachi. A quick comment. Just before the break, as a colleague has this issue of one man, one vote, the training is collapsed. Why is it collapsed?
Shimera, you might want to move back again so that we can hear you clearly.
I'm just saying that this debate on one man.
Yes, excellent. Thank you.
It is fallacious. The framing is. And the reason the framing is fallacious is the government is not based on quotas. It's based on that. I will let it go. To the comparisons that we gave before the break, it is not true that they are not comprehensive.
We may be having an issue hearing you, Shimeha. We will get back to you in a few. We are having an issue hearing you. Let's come back to studio and speak to Odede. First, give us a run back of how this country has done so far with the tax regime. Has it been good? Is Kenya headed in the right direction? Remember, there was a poll this week, 63% of Kenyans saying it's not going the right direction. We've had companies complaining, manufacturers complaining. Uber is saying that some of these taxes, if they come in, they will leave the country. But at the same time, we look at these institutions and they're making billions. Recently in the United States, Warren Buffett said that if the top 100 companies in the States paid their taxes, then the ordinary mwananchi would not need to pay their taxes. So what's the real game here? What should citizens know?
Thank you, Mark. A quick run back is to mirror ourselves from our best time against this time that many people are complaining about high taxes that have been raised on the common man. What is our best time in Kenya? I think everybody would agree with me out there, those who are watching and on this table, that perhaps the time of Kibaki might have been our best time, because in the records of government, you will find a run between 2007, 2008 to 2010, somewhere there our economy grew even much better, and the records are telling. Also between 2003 and 2005 before referendum, the trajectory was good and everybody was a bit optimistic as a nation. So at that time, according to me, what happened that is different from now, so that we can have judgment from the people that this is where we have missed it as a country with regards to governance and also issues around economy and taxes. Around that time, Mark, you realize that Kibaki created like 2 to 3 million new jobs. So when we are talking about expanding the tax base, it was not about sitting down to see what have I not taxed on Anthony. It was about who is not able to pay tax. We have taxed Anthony, so who else do we bring on board. Right now, the difference between then and this is right now we are just adding more taxes on what we have already taxed. Kibaki gave us the motorbikes that time, the duty-free and all those taxes that were on the importation was removed. And then the statistics and in the government record says 1 million young people were on motorbikes every day. And those young people could have earned 200, 300 shillings. And you knew they were headed to the shop to buy bread, to buy unga, to buy sugar, and every other thing. And so the VAT you are collecting on those sugar, unga, and all that were able to give the country the kind of money they needed for the budget. And we moved from 300 billion to about 600 billion in 2-3 years. And we kept on moving like that to 900 billion, and we clocked a trillion budget. The other aspect was another 1 million jobs from the electronics. That is the time, Mark, if you are in Nairobi, that is the time people stopped stealing phone from your ear when you're calling. And people moved from Katululu, quote unquote, to this kind of smartphones. Because all the shops had stocked those phones at a cheaper cost. And everybody went to the shop now to buy. If you remember those times, we moved from Motorola, Ile Ndogo, and Siemens and all that kind of Nokia 3310. We moved from there, Pindogo, to now the kind of phones we are now having. And then it came with all the accessories. And there were many shops that were opened in this city and other parts of the country. And the statistics says it created like 1 million jobs. So those people also had the purchase power. So when you had VAT on the usual commodities that we use every day, like bread and unga, sugar, milk, and all that, you can be sure we were going to buy it in large quantity because there are 2 million Kenyans who are coming to the shop every day to take sugar for use at home, to take unga and all that. That created, so at that time, it was raised, the amount of taxes the government were collecting then were raised from almost 300 billion where Kibaki got it to around 900 billion in the shortest time possible, but there was nobody on the street telling Kibaki that we are tired with the taxes, it is burdening us, because he targeted the right thing. But the difference today is that the cooking oil, the edible oil, is now having 3 different taxes. That is not expanding the tax base. You are still taxing the same thing. And I don't know how it is difficult for government, including the economists, to understand this. Because if you have the tax on package, meaning all our edible oil are packaged on plastic. So you are putting tax on that oil. You already have the tax that manufacturers are paying, the companies are paying, which is corporate tax. You also have VAT on the finished product. And then you also have the tax on raw materials they are bringing, either from Malaysia, Indonesia, and where they are getting those raw materials. So one product, by the time it is finished, have got 4 different taxes. This is going down to common mwananchi because these people are in business. They are not here as a charity organizations. These are companies who want to make business. So they realize that it is difficult to navigate the tax. Now that is where the Ubers and other companies are coming in. It is now difficult to navigate this tax and still make profit. So at the end of the day, I am setting up a company to make profit. So how do I easily make profit? They move from manufacturing to trading. Now the people who are getting from the company to come out and trade are also out of job because the company itself, which is supposed to manufacture, is now trading. So they are getting the finished product from Malaysia, Indonesia, cheaper, and coming to pay tax at the customs, and then they are selling. So that is easier than going through the whole process of manufacturing. Then you end up making very little profit than what you would have made when you just go to Indonesia and get the finished product. But what the company remains, and we see the gates opening every morning, but inside, the the employees are sent home because it is now trading. It is now, we don't have the line of production, marketing and all that. We have very few that we want to do. And things like edible oil, you don't need to do much big marketing because we, at the end of the day, we all need it. Safaricom doesn't have to do much of marketing because we all need credit at the end of the day to make calls and all that. So I think that is the difference between then and now. So if the government were listening to common man, the villagers now, the villagers would have wanted the government to move in with speed to support middle class. Because it is middle class, Mark, that creates jobs for the villagers down here. It is the middle class car that is washed at the car wash every day. It is the wife of a middle class that goes to the salon every other weekend. So the villager who does nails and the one who does car wash all get money from a middle class. But the companies that are now closing shops to go for trading are the middle class that is supposed to feed the common villager down there. So I would have rather get government to look more on how to stabilize the middle class, and the bottom will definitely stabilize.
You know, this villager discussion is becoming quite hot. Shimeha, we are just about to get him online. He wants to talk about the villager question as well. I hope my producers will be able to get him back online. But Samba, from what Odede has said, he's saying that yes, Kenyans want to pay taxes and they have paid more taxes before. Kikumbuka Mwai Kibaki tulipe ushuru tujijenge, that was the tujitegemeas, that was the slogan. What is the thinking, the philosophy behind this tax that this government is introducing? What's the end result? What's expected to happen? Other than raising revenue, which is, of course, the obvious part, what is the government predicting that is opposite to what Odede is saying? Because he's saying that many companies will close down.
I think it's pretty clear that the government is on a mission based on the manifesto they presented. And the mission includes, you know, they had promised housing, they have promised affordable healthcare and whatnot. For you to be able to do all these projects, you need resources. And government has only two places to get money, through taxation and in some extent, debt. So William Ruto gets into office and he campaigned on the platform of he will do everything in his power to minimize on debt, external debt, so that we maximize on source revenue collection within the country, so that our obligations are not entirely to, you know, other forces, but it's more of an internal issue. But now, the tragedy we are in, I feel like the thinking up there is good, but in the middle, people are not getting it right. They're making it look like the primary role of this government is to collect taxes. And that's a wrong perception. If you ask me, I think the government should be an enabler for economic growth, for people to be able to prosper. But you see, the reason why even Kenyans are resisting is because some of the attitude being manifested, even when you are articulating the issue of people's tax obligation, is not perceived from, you know, like the Mwananchi point of view. It's perceived as this person is hell-bent to make you mark. You must pay taxes. And the problem, again, the other tragedy is, unlike in the period, in the regime of Kibaki, Kenyans are not seeing the goodwill they need for them to respond to. Because remember, for Kibaki to be able to expand on his tax collection, one of the things they did was the introduction of the austerity measures. Remember, we were used to government officials driving in big guzzlers. So one of the things Kibaki did to show goodwill to the taxpayer was introduce austerity measures and say, for example, let's now use Passat. Probably they're more economical in terms of fuel consumption, so that we reduce on the cost in terms of expenditure as government and maximize on the expenditure to areas that ideally would spur economic growth in the country. We're not seeing that. And I feel like those are some of the measures the president ought to actually be seized of, in as much as people have branded him Zakayo and whatnot. It's not out of bad faith. I feel And I hear many Kenyans, even on talk shows and TV, radio, they are saying we have no problem in paying taxes. But we have a problem on how, first of all, our taxes are being used. For example, look at even just the budget allocations that have been made. When you see huge sums going towards individual offices, you know, like this office is going to receive X billion of shillings, this amount of money is going to, you know, purchasing cars for this person. Those are now the things frustrating the taxpayer. So it's like, if this one, if we are at a place where we are prioritizing these extras, then it doesn't mean that we actually need the amount of money we are talking about. But if government's attitude shifts and people begin to show that we're actually even cutting on expenditures within the structures of government so that we are accommodative to the future we are trying to build towards, then Kenyans will embrace. I think also there are gaps that need to actually be addressed. And these gaps also involve the people, the citizen. For example, how many of us know at what stage does the budget making process begin? And what's our contribution towards that process? Or are we just reactive when there's a budget policy statement presented in Parliament? Because remember, even the finance bill responds to the propositions in the budget policy statement, which sometimes, if you look at the budget deficit in Kenya, it keeps going up. And if you look at the targets that KRA gives in terms of, you know, tax collection, we never hit those targets. Yet, our projection, budget projections keep going up. We're increasing from, I think right now we are at 4-point-something trillion. We are giving an additional projection of over 400 billion on top of last year's estimates. And probably will not even hit the mark because we always range maybe somewhere almost approaching 3 trillion. So what do we do with this deficit? It means it keeps accumulating because what that does is that, Mark, when you're seated in your office, you know, for example, the allocation in my ministry is supposed to be X million or X billion. So you plan with that in mind, not knowing that probably you don't even have capacity to finance that. So there is also the question of living within our means. It's a discussion we need to have as a country and ask ourselves, is it necessary for us to actually be operating with huge budget estimates when we know our reality? Or can we be progressive? And I think those are some of the steps that the Kibaki regime took that made sense because they were also very careful not to appear like you're exploiting Kenyans. If anything, government needs to actually appear like it's cushioning Kenya from the tax burden so that now you motivate more people to actually be part of the programs. But now when it appears like consistently the efforts being made, and sometimes I feel like the experts around this budget conversation are politically naive. You know, they're not doing any justice to the government of the day because even how they're packaging the whole thing is like you're triggering, you're trying to provoke the common mwananchi. And remember, the way we are discussing the village, and it's just fascinating how this discussion has evolved from from Wanjiku to now Mama Mboga, now to a villager. I don't know what next we will be called. But these individuals...
we have already been called the ground.
The ground.
Yes.
So this ground, because I have walked that path, campaigning and talking to Kenyans in the last election, and I can tell you Kenyans are very good people, but they can also be bad when they are provoked. So the best is for us to actually think that the bottom line must be the common mwananchi. How are we cushioning them? Let me give you an example. Like the debate
quickly,
around
because we need to get Joseph
the debate,
on the line.
like around the debate around the levy on bread. You know, it's a basic commodity. That's something that families take pride in. When you see your father walk home with a loaf, you get excited. It makes you feel like you're actually part of what is on the table. But now when you start frustrating those small things, what are you trying to communicate?
Interesting. Joseph Shimeha is on the line. You'll have to hold on, Bwana Odede. Please, Shimeha, are you there?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. I hope the system is better now.
Okay. Welcome back. It's nice to hear from you. You had comments about the villager as you give us your input on the Finance Bill 2024-2025.
Thank you. I will actually, they are related. So I will link those with the current discussion on the taxation and so on. And what I wanted is that, you know, the reason we have this villager ground, all these other things, our people, our region, and so on, is because of something called governance logic. We have a government that is in charge of a governance system that has a borrowed logic, political parties, Westminster style, and so on and so forth. But the institutions that normally are in charge of aggregating people's interests, that is interest aggregation, interest articulation, and interest negotiation, they are different institutions. And these are the cultural groups, the kinships, the patronage systems, and so on. And that's why you see the deputy president going back to what he calls his people, because he's not fitting in UDA. He's not finding UDA as an institution that would help to articulate the interests of what he knows as his people. Those are, I think, Kikuyu and the others within the GEMA framework. So we have a governance problem there. It's not just an economic problem. We have a governance problem, and you can link it to what we are saying just now about this taxation. And then secondly, it's not just a problem in Kenya or Africa. Even the US suffers it, Australia suffers it, Canada, and many other economies suffer it. It's only that ours manifests itself more around communities on geographic basis. But the US, you'll hear the black population complaining a lot. In Australia, you'll hear the Aborigines complaining a lot. So it's more demographic based than just geographic based in terms of inequalities and iniquities in national resource distribution. It's a worldwide problem. It's a never-ending discussion. So it's not unique to Kenya. It's not unique to Africa. Coming to the question of the taxation in the finance bill, I will not comment from an economic point of view. I have had economists comment very authoritatively, people I have a lot of professional respect for. I will comment from a governance point of view. The problem with economists, including close friends of mine, David Lee and many others, is that they think about formulas and models. They don't think about people. They don't think about power. They don't think about relations, and so on and so forth. If this model has worked somewhere, this percentage of that has worked in that country and they've developed, we will apply it in Kenya. Excuse me, it doesn't matter. The other factors, relational factors, that will determine whether the people will receive it well and support what you are saying or not. To the best of my knowledge in governance, however smart you are in economics, if you cannot bring along the people politically, you will fail. However smart your model is, if the people are feeling oppressed, alienated, left out, they don't understand you, you are pushing them and saying you must raise money from them, they're not seeing where they get opportunities. You seem to be focusing on capital accumulation. People want to feel like they are paying taxes that contribute to their wealth creation, innovation, protection, and so on. You will fail. And I think that, again, is where the problem is. A seemingly limited understanding of the governance dynamics by the team that is pushing that we must accumulate this amount of money. Development is not just about capital accumulation. If you insist on capital accumulation only, and you don't create an environment in which people are freely giving taxes, knowing that this is good for us, and they can see the opportunities that will help them to generate more wealth to pay taxes, they will revolt. And people are smart. They will find ways, however smart KRA is, they will find ways to avoid these taxes. And finally, KRA has powers of those who really should make decisions policy. It's not the responsibility of KRA to make taxes. That's why I think very senior fellow come on TV and sit on here and there. Yeah. They are responsible for collection. So I think our senators and MPs have abdicated their duties of representing us in making decisions on tax policy, and they've left it to KRA, people who don't understand politics and governance, who have usurped this power, and to them, therefore, just I don't think they will succeed.
Thank you so much, Joseph Shimeha. Just coming back to studio, and thank you for those comments. Joseph has made some very heavy points about caring for the people, the dynamics of the politics, the Senate and the Parliament abdicating from their role of representing their people. What can the UDA government do to explain to the people where they are going with the taxes. Because collecting taxes is not an end in itself. You collect to achieve something. What, and I'll give you 1 minute each because we got to go to a break. How does UDA and the President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, need to explain this finance bill, the tax measures, to Kenyans?
Thank you. Mark, if UDA wants to make a difference, then we should go full blast. You know, we love copying other countries, especially in the West, countries that are first world, but we only draw the line where accountability is required on our end now. On the other side, we quote how countries out there are paying huge taxes, big percentage. But the way they account for those taxes is not our way of accounting for the taxes. So we want to copy the part where they collect higher taxes, but we do not want to copy where they account for every small thing. If the train gets an accident, the Minister for Transport is leaving the office without being told you should leave. On the continent of Africa and global south, the minister says, I'm not the driver of that train. I was not even aware that train was going that direction in the first place.
Yeah.
So it is unfair to target my community. So if we want to make a difference, and President William Ruto has moved us as a country to a level where he wants Kenya to play in the big league, Kenya to be part of those big nations and dine together on the table with those people. So take us full time, including in terms of accounting for the resources. Because if I were to pay 60% of my earning into taxes, but my children will go to school free, I will not pay a dime. I will go to the hospital without having to look for insurance privately. I will get all these other ones. Then 40% remaining is enough for me in terms of food and savings.
He's taken a bit of your time. 30 seconds.
I think the bottom line is simple. Number one, we must realize that we have a willing citizen. Kenyans are very receptive to helping this government develop. If we must get it right, we have very many institutions that were created by the Constitution to be able to administer services for the Kenyan people. If we only strengthened and made sure these institutions are working, so that we don't lose 2 billion a day, as President Uhuru said, we don't lose 50 million in Nairobi County, as Mike Sonko is on record saying, and these are individuals who are in office, then we save all this money, then come back to Kenyans and say, we've been able to save you this amount of money. Our projections are this. Then you will have reconnected with Kenyans. Remember, the problems we solve will never be sorted with the thinking that created the problem. The thinking that has been perpetually creating the problem in Kenya is imagining that our solutions will come from external forces. They are within us, and they are within government, they are within our spaces.
You know, I think that this show has a tendency to host very clever people. I'm not bragging, I've been a guest too, but the guests here are quite smart. And guess what? We want to make the conversation richer and smarter. So we need to hear your voice. After the break, we are coming back with your call. We want to hear from you, the Kenyan, whom, it has been said, this particular conversation needs to be about you. So let's make this conversation about you after the break. See you in a bit. The numbers will be on your screens.